We would like to invite the diplomatic corps to proceed to the crematorium. Otherwise, for the rest of us, lunch will be served here. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you for being here to see our hero off. I'd like to make a final announcement. Mr. Zulu, please see me. You have left your credit card in the bathroom, and you will need it very soon.
A fitting final tribute to Mr. Mendi Msimang, as you said earlier, buried on the same day as he was born 90 years ago, coming from a very politically active family and having his tertiary or first graduation in Lesotho, first undergraduate studies in Lesotho, but those were interrupted because of political activities back in South Africa. There you see the cortege coming out of the church, going now to the third part of the program, and Mzwai Mbeje is standing by now to break that down for us. Mzwai.
Thank you very much, Desiree. As you have said, this is a special official funeral category 1, which is being overseen by the military. So the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa, was the one who gave the eulogy. Indeed, he was speaking about a man who needed to be emulated in terms of his example. So this man is really credited with putting the systems in place for the modern functioning of the ANC, particularly its finances. So a number of speakers, Desiree, have really been heaping praise on this giant of the movement. And of course, it's not lost on the fact that today would have been his 90th birthday. So we saw the grandchildren of Baba Msimang really sing for him for his 90th birthday. I mean, in 1928, December 8, this man was born, and then December 8, 2018, this man is buried. So it's quite interesting. I mean, a bit of irony there. But as I've said, Desiree, so this being an event that is being handled by the military, so everything is done really according to what those prescriptions require. So the special official funeral requires that there be certain elements that dictate how it should be done. And that category, it's given to outstanding individuals. Remember, he was not in government. He was never an official in government other than perhaps to be an ambassador. Remember, when he was the ambassador in the United Kingdom. But because of his role, because of his struggle, so the president then afforded him this kind of special official funeral, Desiree.
Mzwai, as we get into the third part of the program this morning, the second one was closed off by Dr. Nokuthula Msimang, who is also our colleague here at the SABC. But the second part is going to be closed off by another really recognizable activist within our society, Dr. Mavuso Msimang.
Absolutely. Those individuals, Desiree, that you are speaking about are very big names in their own rights. But of course, they are also members of the Mendi Msimang family. So they are actually playing very critical roles. Even this morning when we opened the proceedings early with Morning Live, so we were able to speak to, for example, Dr. Mendi Msimang, who was giving us the details as how things were going to continue, so what the proceedings were going to look like. So yes, there are struggle icons, and some of them, as you have said, so our co-workers, but they are members of the family, so they have certain roles to play, Desiree.
Let's just go back to some of the tributes by the different speakers. You could feel the respect and the love when his brother-in-law, Dr. Emo Mokiti, came up to speak as well. How was the mood in the church when he was speaking?
Well, there's a bit of too much noise out here, so I'm not sure if I understood your question, but I assume you are talking about the mood as the proceedings were continuing inside. And of course, as I said to you, this is the funeral service, but for him, he had apparently told his family that he had actually lived long, and then once he turned 90, then he was going to leave them. So it also turned into a celebration, celebrating his life. So you can see that this is someone really who has achieved so much in life, as many speakers really attested. I mean, I'm remembering here, I think the former TG, Zweli Mkhize, remember also Mendi Msimang was the TG. So basically saying he's one of those people who left the ANC with a surplus of about 47 million rand. So which means he knew how to really handle those systems. So it does tell you about the role and the stature of this individual. So that is why you see people like Khalime Motlanthe here and a number of really other officials and dignitaries coming to pay their tribute.
Mzwayi, let's go back to President Cyril Ramaphosa's eulogy, which is totally awesome and amazing. He was talking about a generation whose deeds will reverberate across the ages, a venerable generation who were not tempted by material things that come with the temptations of political office. How was the eulogy accepted by the mourners attending there today? How was it received?
Absolutely. I mean, the president made it clear that this generation is the generation that transformed the ANC. And as I'd said, I'd spoken about putting the systems in place. Remember when they came back from exile, they had no experience in government. They were freedom fighters who had spent, many of them, their time in the bushes, others in foreign lands, others in prisons, even those who were inside the country, really. So they were either up and down, running away from the police, so they did not have that kind of experience. Here now, where the people was the governing party that got a mandate in 1994, and then they have to run government, they have to run the ANC. So, but they were able really to put things together. They were able to transition from the freedom fighters to people in government. So that is why, and every time when you talk about these people, there's almost a sense of nostalgia, given the kind of contribution and sacrifice that they made. So the president basically was saying, even when he could see that some of the people were doing wrong things, he never gave up on them. And they said, and that example must be emulated, because as you know, the ANC currently is not perhaps in the best of shapes, but they cannot give up, because people like Mendi Msimang wouldn't give up on the ANC or on the people. So what he was essentially saying was that this ANC, which is in government, must be able to go back to the values and the principles that were shown by individuals like Mendi Msimang, who are really disappearing in the face of the earth. Obviously, many of them are quite old now, so the mantra is left with those who have to run government, but they must have the principle, the foundations, if they learn from the people of Mendi Msimang's stature, so definitely they'll be able to stay the course.
Mzwayi, let's touch a bit on some of the contributions of Mr. Meindrat Themba Boy Msimang to South Africa, especially post-apartheid. He was the first chairperson of the ANC Parliamentary Caucus. In 1997, he became the Treasurer General of the ANC. And in 1991, given the Order of Meritorious Service by former President, the late Mr. Mandela. When people such as the current Treasurer General Paul Mashatile and former Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize listen to these contributions, what should they be picking up from the works of Mr. Msimang?
You know, Desiree, something that was very interesting said by the President was that the way he was so good, perhaps he almost matched the former treasurer of the yesteryears, Thomas Ngobi. And then he put a challenge to Zweli Mkhize and Paul Mashatile, saying, well, he can see that all they're trying to do is to try and follow in the footsteps, which is the right thing to do. Of course, Zweli Mkhize, you'll remember, he is the former treasurer of the ANC. And last year, when the new leadership was elected, then Paul Mashatile took over. But he was basically saying, so it can be done. And those who are assuming that possibility of leading in those various positions can actually do like Baba Msimang did.
Let's speak to the current footage that our viewers are seeing. The former President Kgalema Motlanthe speaking to President Cyril Ramaphosa. We didn't see former President Thabo Mbeki and former President Jacob Zuma today. Do you know what the reasons are?
Well, we wouldn't know, but obviously it's possible they may have had prior engagements, so as a result they may not have been able to attend. But of course, the former president and the former Secretary General of the ANC, Kgalema Motlanthe, did deliver the main speech when the ANC held its own memorial service during the week. He actually spoke of someone who left a legacy which is really commendable. He did also speak about the proper financial systems being put in place and also touching on the Lily's Leaf farm, saying, so he was the one really who made sure that the Lily's farm, the one that the famous one, so was really taken care of, is a proper museum. So as for other presidents who are not here, we were not able to really find out exactly what could be the reasons. But as I've said, it's possible they may have had prior arrangements. But Kgalema Motlanthe and of course the current president were here indeed.
The grandchildren also gave a very moving tribute, but also giving us a sense of the jovial nature that they used to have with their grandfather. Have you had the chance to speak to the grandchildren and find out what this send-off means for them?
You know, for the children at Desiree, they did get the opportunity, even the very young ones, and I think they are 3 or 4. So they did write some poem for their grandfather. So basically saying, you know, here was the best of friends. Here was someone who taught them something. Here was someone they were always looking forward to when they got home, because they know that granddad was always there. I mean, when those young ones really took the podium, I mean, everyone was kind of like impressed. And remember, I said this was also a celebration, because you would see laughter and you would see, despite it being an emotional occasion, but people did get a sense of saying, given the kind of role he is playing, and you can also judge by the family. Because if you see Desiree, a family that is well brought up, you can really see that Mr. Msimang did a very good job, not only on the political front, where many of us know him, but also he was a great family man, as the grandchildren really did attest to it, and of course some of the great-grandchildren. Yes, the president and the former president also very impressed by the young ones as they relate some of their stories, how they were going to miss their granddad. And of course, these are things really that happen. Someone who is as old as him, at some point we know that he can't live forever. But what remains really important are the kinds of lessons and the legacy that he leaves behind.
Ambassador Lindi, where Mabuza also saying, speaking on behalf of the family, saying that the Msimang family really through the years has downplayed the significant role that they had in bringing about liberation in South Africa, something echoed by the Tambo Foundation when it says Lala Ngoxolo Mkhonto, veteran, activist, diplomat and educator. Just once again, as you give us a sense of this transitioning period from the church to the cemetery and what's happening there, give us a sense of the mood now.
Well, the stalwarts, perhaps just to go back to what you have just said, that was said by the former ambassador to the UK, Lindy Mabuza. So remember, he also went to India, where he really engaged the Indian government, the Indian authorities, to support the struggle. And then he went to Tanzania. He was part of those people, Desiree, who set up Somafco. You'd remember that school of the ANC in Tanzania that taught a number of children, and many other activities really that he was engaged in. And people here are feeling a sense of gratitude that in their lifetime there was an individual like this one. Yes, there's nothing they can do to make him live forever. So it's time for them to allow him to go. Of course, there's that sense of being emotional, but also there's the sense of being gratitude for the job that he did for the country, and of course for the family, Desiree.
So please give us a sense now of what's going to happen next.
Now the cortege will be leaving for the Pretoria West Park Cemetery. I may just have made a mistake there, but the cemetery that he's going to, that's where we understand he's going to be cremated. But of course, our coverage is not ending here as yet, because our colleagues, Offense Stimo, is that side as well. So he will be able to give us a sense once the cortege has left here and they arrive on the other end of the town. So then they'll be able to, and then perhaps give us a sense of what's happening there.
So I thank you so much for giving us that wrap of all the events that took place this morning from Pretoria. Let's take a break.